The United States Catholic bishops are suing the Trump administration. Headline came out today. Here it is. U.S. Catholic bishops sue Trump administration for halt in funding for refugee settlement. And I'm here today with my friend John Yep, president of Catholics for Catholics. He's been covering this for years and doing a lot of great work. And John, I mean, we've seen the bishops complaining about USAID, Catholic Charities, CRS. I just had Michael Hitchborn on last week. He was talking about some of the nefarious things that are happening over there. What's your initial take on seeing the Catholic bishops suing the Trump administration?
Before I even go there, I got to just say, nunc dimittis. Now you can let your servant go in peace. So, like, I've made it to the Taylor Marshall show.
Welcome.
It took me about 5 years co-founding an organization, helping Trump win the election and get an event at Mar-a-Lago. But hey, you know what? Better late than never. So
we're here.
It's honestly, it's great to be here. And I'm glad you led with Frank, because yes, we are friends, and I've appreciated very much your friendship. And just as another married man and leading your family and trying to, just parse this whole crazy time we're living through in the church, right? Very unique time.
Amen. Thank you for that.
Speaking of unique, I mean, we have the headline, the AP article you just read. I mean, did you ever think when you converted, Taylor, back in 2013, that you wake up one day and find the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops suing the president?
No. No. I mean, honestly, when they started going back and forth with J.D. Vance and then Trump, I thought the bishops are going to realize they're going to lose. This is a war. They're going to lose this war. And then to wake up and see the headline, bishops suing Trump administration, and then just to see, go on X, go on Facebook, everyone is thinking you're getting free money from the government. There's questions about the legitimacy of this and how it works into legal immigration as opposed to illegal. And now you're going to sue to get more taxpayer money, or the taxpayer money that you wanted. And it just, I mean, maybe there's a good read on this, but just on the face of things, it makes the bishops look money hungry. Is that your read on this?
100%. I mean, in their court or filing, right? They protested. They said, well, look, we were never told about this. We didn't know it. We were sent a 2-page letter by the Trump administration, and boom, we had our funding taken away. I mean, let's back up. Excuse me. We've been campaigning, the Catholic populace and MAGA world has been campaigning the last 2 years, warning that we were calling their bluff. We knew Catholic Charities, a subset of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, was the travel agency of the illegal invasion of this country. That's not John Yep's words. That's Tom Homan, right? And we did a tour, Taylor, about a couple years back, where we went down to McAllen, Texas, and it was a busload of people, and Tom gave us a personal tour of the border. And I remember asking him when we stepped out, right there on the wall, I said, Tom, let's get this on camera. Had my phone on, said, Tom, explain to me the role of Catholic Charities. And boom, he was dead on. He said, look, they are the travel agency. They make this possible. They are funded. They're the number one NGO. Yes, there's other religious groups involved, but they're the number one group. So as far as them just finding out or being surprised about a 2-page letter, whatever, right?
Right. Do you mind if I show a clip of Tom Homan discussing this? I think it's really good. I have one queued up.
Please do.
Yeah, let's do it. Here he is.
The Pope this morning had some very harsh words for the...
I got harsh words for the Pope. Pope won't fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was First Communion as a Catholic. Confirmation as a Catholic. He ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us from securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
Yeah, what's your reaction to that, John?
Love Tom. In the interactions that I've had with him, personally got to know him a little bit during these past couple of years. Tom is just salt of the earth, just a good man. Little anecdote for your listeners. Tom, as he says, he grew up Catholic, and he got that faith, especially from his dad. I remember one person who used to visit his dad, who was in a nursing home, and they would go to the nursing home, and they would see that these people would gather around 3 o'clock every single day, and the guy, my friend, asked him, like, all right, so why are all the elderly gathering around at 3 o'clock every single day in the nursing home? And they said, oh, it's because Tom Homan's father, World War II veteran, started a rosary group right there in the nursing home, and taught everyone the rosary, even non-Catholics. And so when Tom speaks as he does, he's been a Catholic all his life. He got that faith in large part from his dad. He carries that rosary with him, and it's really something that it's part of everything he's doing right now. Do you think the guy has a fun job right now? I can't imagine. I mean, he has a target on his head. He will for the rest of his life, upon him and his family. And I mean, Taylor, you and I get knocked every now and then when we kind of challenge the bishops or different things like that. But I can't imagine dealing with some of the most violent criminals in the entire world, the drug cartels, having to face them. And when you look back behind you to see who's supporting you, it should be your own Catholic prelates and clergy. They're saying the opposite all the way up to the Holy Father. I mean, talk about a stab in the back. So Tom's a good guy. We got to really pray for him.
It's extremely dangerous. I mean, we have to pray for our police force, but the border, I don't think people that don't live in border states realize how extremely dangerous it is, and that people are attacked. I mean, I remember being down on the border, and the guy I was with, he's like, do you have a handgun with you? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you should probably wear it. And I was like, what? And he's like, we're on the border. And I was like, oh, you think we're going to see people? He's like, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you'll be walking around and you'll see one or several people that are sneaking in across the border. He goes, usually if you just freeze and don't make any action, they'll just move on. But if there is any aggression, you're going to have to pull a handgun. Like, it happens, and this is, you don't know if you're dealing with coyotes, drug dealers, human traffickers, or, and it's true, people of goodwill who are looking for the land of opportunity. That's part of it as well. But, Tom Homan, ICE, Border Patrol, all those guys are regularly interacting with the scum of the earth.
Absolutely are. And they're doing it. Tom does it because he just loves his fellow Americans, and just wants great safety in this country again. So, it's sad to see, but there's been a blessing in through all this. I mean, I think you'd agree here. Trump comes to office, not even a Catholic, quasi-Christian, and just starts going to town, just following, I guess, basic pragmatic principles. Okay, we're going to cut government spending. Oh boy, let's see where this goes. We need a secure border. And they started uncovering through Elon Musk, et cetera, about all these payments that have gone out to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And, the funny comment too, when you read the article from, their court filing that the bishops put out, was they were lamenting the fact that 50 of their employees that were dealing with, immigration related activities, refugee resettlement, as they say, have been laid off. Okay, you're crying about 50 employees. Yeah, I care about their families, of course. But look, do you know how many people you've laid off in this country because you've let 16 million people into this country? Okay, it's shot up the wages for all the other true poor people of this country. So let's stack that up. Let's lament those people.
And on top of that, I know of and have heard of Catholic men and women who lost their diocesan jobs over getting, for example, the COVID vaccine. That was a real thing too. And, they weren't belly aching over that. So yeah, it is a complicated issue. It is sensitive. And, I'm just concerned that the bishops are going to be using presumably money from the pews to hire the lawyers to sue. Is that how it's going to work? Are they?
It's our money, right? Probably our money, or here's the other thing: do we really know? I mean, not that they would, but government grants are very hard to track because of the fact that as a 501c3, they're classified as a church. They do not have to post their 990s. So where will that money come from to pay these attorneys? Kind of hard to tell, right? As Michael Hitchborn would say, right?
Yeah.
So it's absurd, and they kind of say, well, we've been doing this for a century. Yeah. You have been doing this for nearly a century. Okay, maybe after the Second World War, there was a case for it when pretty much every city looked like Dresden. Okay, but the fact of the matter is now, I mean, this has been it's your government NGO. It's charity for sale, as a book we just produced. We'll talk about later, but it's people are seeing through it. Not just Catholics like you and I, Taylor, but other people, which is a great thing.
Yeah. What happens? Let's say that maybe they're hoping for a settlement here. Maybe they're hoping just for that last bit of money. Let's say it moves forward. They go into the process of discovery, which is, I think, going to be probably negative for them. And then they lose it. This is going to be dragged out for months, maybe years in the public eye. What does this do for the public perception of the Catholic bishops, not only amongst Catholics, but also non-Catholics? I'm already seeing tons of Catholics saying, this is the last straw. I'm no longer giving to the diocese. This is ridiculous. I mean, is there
100%.
a winning outcome for the U.S. bishops in this strategy at all? And what does it look like?
I don't think so. I think they're up against the ropes in that sense, right? And I would second that, Taylor. We run an organization that deals with a lot of activists, patriots who love, God and country. They're not all Catholic. And let me tell you, the number one response or email that I get from people, whether that's on social media, just contact us, is love what you're doing on the Catholic front. I just can't stand your Catholic charities. What are you guys doing? It has been there. It's like it's again, top response. If you just rate this all over, this has been, and we can as a church decide to look the other way and try to ignore this, as some people have, prelates for the last couple of years. But, those outside our faith, they're seeing it clearly. And if we have a prayer of evangelizing and removing this scandal, we have got to hit it head on. So, and I'm glad this is coming out now, sincerely, 100%.
Yeah. A while back, part of our family helped sponsor and adopt a Somali young man who his whole family was killed in front of him, and he was a refugee. He came over here, he went to college, whole thing paid for, and then out of college got a job, and he got a job with Catholic Charities. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me, like, Catholic Charities is so great because they don't care about your religion, and so much of the staff is Muslim and all that. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, wow, like most of the staff is not even Christian or Muslim. And I was like, what is Catholic about Catholic Charities? And right. From his point of view, and I understand he's a refugee, he's a Muslim, but he's just shocked that a Christian organization has basically handed itself over to non-Catholics. And I can't imagine any other religion, especially Islam, saying, yeah, let's have 51% of our staff Catholic. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that also was really kind of insightful last week when we had Michael Hitchborn on is all of these grants, USAID, all of them specifically state you cannot share the faith, talk about God, talk about Christ, talk about the gospel, talk about the sacraments. That is explicitly forbidden. So you're able to go out there and do your work for the grant, but you're also required to cooperate with the other people who receive grants on that project. And some of those are abortion providers. Some of those are contraception, IUDs, morning after, all kinds of ungodly things. And you're shoulder to shoulder working on a project. I just don't see the 12 apostles saying, let's take money from the Roman government. And yeah, people are getting slain in the Colosseum, and part of our group supporting that, but we're also doing some good out here outside the Colosseum.
Well said, absolutely. 100%. It's their hands are tied. They're not really unable to preach the gospel if that's a stipulation from the government grants. But even going like philosophically too, isn't there a point? I don't know what you think about this, to be made that charity in its essence can't be mandated, and when half or more than half of your entire budget is coming from taxes from the people. In other words, it's taken from us really without much say from us, and that money's just given. It's a government. It's an oxymoron. It's like government charities is philosophically impossible in a sense, right? Because it's mandated. The role of government is justice. Charity has to be freely given, and that's not freely given. Archbishop Wenski going on, with all due respect, going on Raymond Arroyo 2 weeks ago and trying to say, well, it's not the government money. It's our money. Archbishop, it's our money, and we don't have a say in it. Taylor and I are the ones paying taxes out of our paychecks, So I guess we should make the point that it's not even like philosophically charity in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, John, because him saying the mentality is it's our money is the
Mhm.
same mentality of let's sue the Trump administration for our money, right?
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, people talk about a welfare state and a welfare state of mind where there are families that are multi-generational welfare families. All right. I don't want to judge all of them. Maybe there's some handicaps or something going on there, but you can create a welfare state of mind where people learn to game the system. And that mentality over time is this is my money. I'm owed this money. And I just fear that our bishops have fallen into that. And how long has this been going on? It's definitely been going on for 4 years. It's probably been going on for a lot longer than that. And, do you think that the bishops really do at the end of the day say this is our money, we have a right to it?
Goes back to you could even say to the very origin of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, right, which was born essentially in World War I out of an effort of Cardinal Gibbons trying to really gain the approbation, the appreciation, the esteem of leftist President Woodrow Wilson. And so they secured the Catholic population to get behind the President Wilson's attempt to enter in the First World War. So it kind of really began in a lot of ways with this overemphasis and focus on pleasing the government as opposed to pleasing God first, and serving mammon, if you will. And so from its very origin, it had this miscolored and misguided role. Yes, they did some great things over the years, and everything was not essentially bad. But at the end of the day, when you look back at it, and there's been no pro-life national collection out of the 17 national collections that the USCCB has done in 45 years, tells you everything you got to know. Is it the preeminent issue? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Why aren't the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops doing collection for pro-life? Why doesn't the answer is because the government doesn't give money for that. The government does not pay for that. The government pays for opposite of that. And John, will you speak to the growing perception that there's a hypocrisy on the part of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops? And again, we're not saying every single bishop in America. We're talking about the organization, the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And also with Pope Francis's recent letter, which addresses or quotes in a way J.D. Vance. 4 years, John. 4 years. President Joe Biden, I'm a good Catholic. I was a Catholic altar boy. I met with Pope Francis. He says I'm a Catholic in good standing. Pope Francis told me to receive communion. Nancy Pelosi goes to Rome, receives communion. All of these Democratic Catholics flaunting their Catholicism, campaigning on their Catholicism. The only bishops that I know that spoke out against this are Bishop Strickland. We know what happened to him. He was canceled. And then Archbishop Corleone said that Nancy Pelosi couldn't receive communion. But for 4 years, it's crickets. There's nothing. And now they are outraged. And everyone's looking at this and say, are you outraged because you're suddenly convicted and you're prophetic and you're John the Baptist? Or are you outraged because of your checking balance?
It's absolutely obvious that people see it, whether the or bishops want to say that, people don't, we smell it. We can smell this up from a mile away. And it has a devastating effect, not only on the Catholic faithful, but also on those who aren't Catholic. And like a concrete example, we all saw the clip when Charlie Kirk had that discussion with Michael Knowles. And Charlie's a great guy, had a large part in getting President Trump elected. So kudos to him. Well, what was one of the three things that he said? He loves Catholics, but he could not reconcile the faith and becoming Catholic. Two of the reasons were, one was, the whole infallibility. He said John Paul II was a great guy, but looking at the present Pope, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I get it, okay? Right. But the second thing he said was transubstantiation. Okay, that's a gift of faith. It takes some effort and reason to arrive to that. However, how is a guy like Charlie Kirk supposed to believe that we think that bread is actually Jesus Christ, the Son of God, when the very people, the shepherds, the ones who are supposed to protect the Eucharist, yes, give it to the dogs. And dogs, I do mean President Biden. I'm not slanting him as a person. I am just referencing the fact that what mortal, obstinate, grave sin does to the soul. It makes us outside the fold, okay?
Yeah.
I don't wish that. So how is Charlie Kirk supposed to believe that we believe in the Eucharist? So the witness or lack thereof of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops has had a devastating effect. And you and I, Taylor, just are trying to scream on different podcasts about this and how we need to restore that reverence back to the Eucharist and make people believe.
Yeah. From an apologetics or an evangelization point of view, interfacing with smart people like Charlie Kirk or other influencers, we're trying to convince them in apostolic succession. They'll say stuff to us like, well, we have communion. It's like, well, you have to have the Eucharist. It has to be consecrated by a priest in apostolic succession. Okay, what is apostolic succession? Well, the early church fathers, St. Irenaeus and others, say that the apostles, before they died, laid hands on men and made them bishops, who then laid hands on men and made them bishops, all the way down to this day. So the bishops in America are the direct successors of the apostles through the laying on of hands. That logically makes sense. But then when they, read a headline on the AP, U.S. Catholic bishops sued Trump to halt funding on refugee settlement, they have to then make the leap. These are the apostolic successors in the apostolic ministry. And we talk a lot about apostolic successors, but we need apostolic success. And apostolic success is proclaiming the gospel, rightly administering the sacraments, defending the helpless, defending the weak, defending the unborn, and yes, defending those who are being manipulated on the border. Absolutely. On both sides of the border. So, as Fulton Sheen said that, people don't hate the Catholic Church. They hate what they think the Catholic Church is. Unfortunately, many, not all, but many of our bishops are presenting a form, I want to say a form, an illusion of what Catholicism is, and they won't accept it. That, for a convert like me, is extremely difficult, because I want people like Charlie Kirk to experience the joy of the Eucharist and the joy of confession and the joy, all the things that we get in the Catholic Church. But unfortunately, there's this perceived visible barrier, and it's, well, how can you make the argument that this is the one true church? These are the successors of the apostles, when you've got abuse of young ones, embezzlement. Cardinal McCarrick, number one cardinal, number one bishop in America, abuser, embezzler. And now this coming out. Again, people are converting, people see the truth, but it's hard. It makes it more difficult for us to reach people for Christ and for the church.
Makes it a lot harder. And I think sometimes, you have different segments of the Catholic world on where you stand. I hate to use the term liberal, conservative, whatever, but in this whole culture war that we're experiencing as a church in a lot of ways, because this is a tremendously unique time, there are those Catholics who are good. They go to church. They're not heretics, but they might look at a Taylor or a John Yap or a Michael Hitchborn or somebody like that, and they don't get why they don't agree. They think that the way we're affronting this whole issue is we should be, protecting and not talking about the bad. They kind of agree, quietly that, yeah, it's wrong. But, they're not inviting us to the mainstream church conferences, and they're trying to get answers. I got to say this to you. We're doing this because the best way to reach the Charlie Kirks of the world, because we've seen this firsthand, you and I, Taylor, being behind the scenes, some of these different people, is you got to talk about it. You got to be honest. And we're doing this because we love, right, them. If don't, they turn the other direction. They will never, like some of these culture warriors out there who aren't Catholic, they will never give the Catholic Church a second look until we are out there willing to take literally bullets at some time at our house. Think about Matt Walsh, what he's done, and what he's undergone for just speaking about the transgender issue. Until we're willing to do that, then they'll look at us. They'll look at our witness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I throw something out there about the human trafficking thing? I think it gets even more down to the brass tacks of this all, right? It's government funding, our tax money, your tax money. Okay, let's get real. Okay, as Tom Homan explained to me clearly when we went down to McAllen, Texas, you hear the accusation that Catholic Charities involved in human trafficking. How does it actually work? And again, okay, there's not every single person who works at Catholic Charities is not an evil person that knows about this. Okay, I get this, and they do some good work. Okay, but it needs an audit, and there are people up there at the top that do know what's going on. Reason would tell you that that's the case. This is what happens. You have these unaccompanied minors. Thankfully, it's stopped now pretty much since Trump took office. They arrive to the border, okay? Border Patrol takes them in buses to, McAllen, Texas Catholic Charities, right? All these kids show up, all right? Yes, for every kid that they take in, it's like $2,800 that they're awarded by the federal government, okay? Then they have sponsors who come approach these kids and say they want to adopt these kids, or that they have a connection, or that's my cute little nephew, and the guy's got like 50 tattoos and earrings. Okay. So these Catholic Charities people have been, for the last 4 years or more, just giving these kids over to these people. Of course, before they leave the door, they say, okay, we're going to check up on you 3 times during the year. Those of you who have adopted kids, it's a similar process. You get the kid in your home, the state agency, licensed agency has to check up on the child 4 times a year. You pay, I think sometimes it's like $400 for every one of those interviews. It's crazy. And then if you miss one of those interviews, you better believe the state will be on your case to make sure that everything's okay at home with this kid that you just got. But what happens in these cases with these unaccompanied minors? Do you think they show up for their 3 meetings out of the year? No. That's why we're able to know on that there's 320,000 kids who are missing. How do we get that number? It's from those NGOs who basically have to file, oops, don't know where these kids went. I mean,
No.
You could say whatever you want, but it's obvious. And don't tell me that the leaders of these Catholic Charities down there and the bishops who are around there, that they're just innocent people taking in people. Give me a break, okay? And that's where this sin cries out to heaven.
Michael Hitchborn made a great point last week, and it's pretty much what you're saying here is the United States bishops have given out hundreds of millions of dollars in payouts. The Diocese of, Rockville Center in Long Island just is going bankrupt with a $350 million payout for sexual abuse against children. That's just one diocese, not to mention Boston, not to mention LA, not to mention these other dioceses, dozens of dioceses, at least a dozen dioceses, because of their malfeasance in protecting children, going back at least to 2002. So if this is an organization that has been going bankrupt in giving out hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in reparations for not overseeing the protection of young children, why is the United States government giving money to them to oversee isolated, lonely children on the border? Not saying that the Catholic bishops couldn't do a good job, but I think in the current 20-year history, they're probably not qualified. They haven't purged their sins to be qualified to take lonely, isolated children at the border. And what you're saying right there aligns exactly with what Michael Hitchborn said on the podcast last week.
It makes zero sense. It doesn't make any sense. And remember, too, the guy who really got these grants going in a large way during the Obama years and continuing on into President Biden's term was Theodore McCarrick, right? He's the one who orchestrated these grants. In fact, when I was working for the diocese, Phoenix, I remember I was in the fundraising department. And I just remember researching these national collections, right? The 17 that they have established. It just hit me like a trainload of bricks when I saw that the person overseeing those national collections mandated in every single Catholic parish was Theodore McCarrick. That was his role. Out of all the commissions of the USCCB he could be doing, he was that one. He knew where the money was and where the juice was. And I know we're beating up on some of these, bishops, the Cardinal Zupiches, who are probably behind the letter that Pope Francis signed and got, done. But you also have to remember, it goes down to the local parish priest. I know you got a lot on your plate. You do. You're doing great work. You guys have a very, very tough role now. But why is it that I go to church and every single Catholic parish across this country about a couple Sundays ago is still giving out one of these? This is the envelope for Catholic Relief Services.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. If that hasn't been proved over and over again by Michael Hitchborn and Lepanto Institute, that these funds are going there, it's like, who do they think we're? I think we're stupid. So at some point, the priest, we've got to just stand up and say no, right? Evil happens when good men do nothing, and that's the case.
100%. I want to keep talking about this story. I think people are also asking about Trump and IVF. As Catholics, we need to discuss that. I also want to continue out this story, also hear what Catholics for Catholics are up to. I do have a sponsor. We're going to jump over to Field of Greens. Been using Field of Greens for several months, and I've noticed lately I've been using it different times of the day. It definitely gives an energy burst. I didn't know that before, but I definitely have experienced it. Field of Dreams is a delicious glass of nutritional army for your body, and each fruit and vegetable was carefully selected by doctors for a specific health benefit. We're talking about heart health, lungs, kidneys, metabolism, even a healthy weight. And I love the energy I get when I use Field of Greens. But most of all, I love the confidence that I have, even when I have a little cheat day of guilt-free, because Field of Greens is providing those gaps in my nutrition for fruits and vegetables. It provides all the daily nutrition for my bodily needs. And now my family's using it, including my 13-year-old son. He uses it every single day. I don't even ask him to do it. He just started doing it. It's great. So the Field of Greens is also backed by the Better Health Promise. Your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. And it happened to me. I went to my doctor and he says, you're better than last time. So I don't know if that's all Field of Greens, but it's definitely a part of that recipe. So if you're interested, let me help you get started with a special discount. You get 20% off your first order. Go to fieldofgreens.com and use promo code TM, fieldofgreens.com, promo code TM. Or you can click the link in the show notes, fieldofgreens.com, promo code TM.
Taylor, the real question is, do you feed your cows that? Is that why they're so healthy looking? Because that's the test.
My cows are so healthy, and I can't wait to go see them tomorrow because my cows eat only grass, no corn, no grain, no chemicals, and they drink spring water. So they don't need Field of Greens. They don't need Field of Greens. My cows are just in a field of green grass, and they're enjoying their life. It's fantastic.
There you go. That's the secret.
That's the secret. I want to talk about Catholics for Catholics. I've done some things with y'all, and I've probably mentioned it here on the podcast, but some people may not be familiar with Catholics for Catholics. And I think probably one event that everyone knows about that we've talked about is when the LA Dodgers had their Sisters of Perpetual, what were they called? I don't even want to say it.
Dolphins.
Yeah, this is a group of people who are cross-dressing, and they're dressing up like nuns in the most blasphemous, sacrilegious way possible. And a lot of bishops weren't addressing it. And there was a big rally. Bishop Strickland was there, highly controversial. You and Catholics for Catholic were at the center of that, were you not?
We were at the center of it, and controversial, not just getting it from the left, but from that segment of the Catholic population, like we've referenced before, good, conservative, not heretics. However, it wasn't the style of fight that they have been accustomed to really for the past 30 years or so. Right. It wasn't their style. What do I mean by that? Yes, when the Dodgers announced that the sisters were going to be there, they started their prayer campaigns. They wrote their strongly worded letters asking them not to do it, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, that didn't really change the Dodgers' mind, and the process was going to go on. This is back in June of 2023. By this time, Catholics for Catholics were only 8 months old, right? But we knew, Jesse Romero and others, America Needs Fatima, groups like that, we kind of knew that to beat the enemy, public blasphemy necessitates public reparation. Basic principle, right? Christ had to be crucified out on a public hill for the sins of the world. It wasn't crucified inside of a synagogue. And so what do we do practically? We approached the local ecclesial authorities there and invited them to participate in a prayerful rally. They declined and literally asked that they said they would remain neutral, but they did let one of their auxiliary bishops to basically release a statement which came out and said kind of don't go to the rally. So they kind of played both sides. But anyway, we said, okay, fine. You want to play neutral? All right, whatever, between you and God, do you mind if we do this? And since you're not going to send a bishop there to support us, considering that it is Antifa HQ, we love to have the spiritual firepower that a bishop brings. Would you mind if we bring Bishop Strickland? They said, sure, no problem. Bishop Strickland asked them, is it okay? They said, thumbs up, no problem. We announced Bishop Strickland. Long story short, in about a week and a half time, we were able to bring 5,000 with Our Lady's help there on a Friday afternoon, Feast of the Sacred Heart outside, Dodger Stadium. And it was the picture that just, it went all over the world. That image, it was like, yes, it was like, this is what Catholics are supposed to do. I mean, we're not going to sit back and let our nuns, for crying out loud. How many notes I got from fathers of nuns, by the way, saying, thanks for protecting my daughter who's in the convent and can't be out there. Give me a break.
Here's a picture. Here's a picture of them. I hate to show it, but I think people need to realize the level of scandal here. These are biological males dressing up as nuns, and they use crosses, they use rosaries, they use portions of the traditional Catholic habit, and it's disgusting. And it's mocking, yes, people's daughters who are nuns. But John, wouldn't you agree with me? This is mocking the brides of Jesus Christ. Like, you don't do that. Nuns are the brides of Jesus Christ. They are espoused to Jesus. And these are men with beards dressed up like nuns, mocking it. And the LA Dodgers featured this. And the Los Angeles clergy remained neutral. So we have to have, I don't want to use the word advocacy. We have to take up public space for Jesus Christ, for the Blessed Virgin Mary, for the saints, for the church. And if the clergy aren't going to do it, and some clergy do, thank God we had Bishop Strickland there and others, there needs to be a grassroots organization that's leading the charge, and Catholics for Catholics are up that. What else are y'all doing over at Catholics for Catholics?
I just back up to, and people kind of understand who the heck I am and why am I part of this group, Catholics for Catholics. I'm a former religious. I spent many years discerning a vocation to the priesthood with the Legionaries of Christ. I was actually in Rome on the day that Taylor Marshall got his lightning grace in St. Peter's, right? February 2nd, 2015, 2013?
2013. Yep.
So right before,
were you at the Mass? I think we talked about this before. Were you at that Mass?
I was at the Mass. Yeah. I was at the Mass, and Taylor was at.
So when I had the moment that I knew I had to become Catholic and be in union with Rome and the Pope, and I knew that if I didn't do it, I'd go to hell. This was the way forward. You were in St. Peter's that night, that Mass. It's amazing.
I was in St. Peter's. Yep. Imagine just a sea full of like young men dressed in young, black and white, and then there's Taylor Marshall dressed as well, but he's got like his wife next to him. It just like threw the entire like St. Peter's into a loop. Like, what was going on? Okay. So anyway, This is, by the way, the Benedict era when chastity or celibacy wasn't even questioned. So,
yeah, Pope Benedict was the celebrant at that Mass. I remember. Yeah,
absolutely. He was. And so anyway, I'm a former religious, spent many years during a vocation, long story short, that's a story for another day. I mean, everything the Legionaries of Christ went through, and I got caught up in all that. And, I'm grateful for the formation that they gave me. There's some really good men in there. We discerned that God wasn't calling me to be a priest. Again, longer story for a different day. So you imagine me, I leave after 18 years of formation after they, basically let me know that, sorry, but we don't think you have a vocation after I spent 18 years there. I'm grateful now. You kind of
dodged a bullet though, right?
Because God didn't want it. He didn't want it. So, I wasn't meant to be there,
Right.
and I'm grateful that for, ultimately that they helped me make it's just
It's kind of like in
long.
my life when I was a married Catholic or a married Episcopalian priest, and I met with Theodore McCarrick, Cardinal McCarrick. And he's like, "Yeah, we'll
Can
get you
you
made into a
imagine that? Imagine being a fly in the wall. Can we go
yeah."
back in time and watch that? Taylor
There was
Marshall meets with
the
Taylor
two
McCarrick.
moments that I wish I had on camera was when a young Taylor Marshall met with Cardinal McCarrick about becoming a priest. I wish I had a video of that meeting, and then I also wish there actually is a video of when Taylor Marshall's child is in the Pope Mobile with Pope Francis. I think those are two like documentary moments.
The ultimate infiltration, man. You got a Marshall kid in the Pope Mobile.
I know.
Wow.
Infiltration, yeah. Sorry, just
No, man. So I'm a religious. Yeah, we're grateful that. Yeah, I wasn't ordained a priest. I wasn't meant to be. Okay.
yeah,
So I land on the other side with 2 degrees and a whole wealth of knowledge of the good, the bad, the ugly of Mother Church.
yeah,
And what do? Okay, you get married. Okay, I got married and moved to Arizona and did some odd jobs here and there for the first few years to make ends meet. And then you get around to like, okay, great. What am I going to do as a lay person to provide for my family and then change the world? Okay, be an apostle. That didn't change in me. I left home when I was 13 years old as a minor seminarian. Very clear.
wow.
I wanted to evangelize. This is what it's about.
Yeah.
It's bringing souls to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and our Blessed Mother. And so, those things don't change about you. Those are the kind of the underlying principles. So looking at, I was in 2022, it was in midterms. I'm in Arizona and I'm looking at the elections back in like September or August. And it just hit me like a train of bricks that you had 5 politicians in 5 major races. It's governor's race, Senate's race, 2 key congressional, Secretary of State, down to a T. All of them declare themselves as Catholics. Mark Kelly, senator, like officially on his crown's crazy, but on his official like Senate like religious denomination affiliation, it says Catholic. Okay, and I was just like, it was on a Friday afternoon. I was just looking at the dry erase board, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, And so I called my friend Harold Ziegler. He's a very experienced elderly man, 90 years old, and I said, Harold, this is crazy. Okay, like, why isn't anybody speaking up about this stuff? And so we, pretty soon afterwards, we started a 501c4, and it's C4 on purpose because, Taylor, it's hard enough to be like doing evangelization work in more like the C3 atmosphere of where you don't really touch politics. It's like 10 times harder doing it, trying to bring your faith in the political arena because things get sticky. It's not always clear as day, and it's hard. But we knew that the kind of leadership today, we weren't going to get it from the traditional places of where we looked to for hundreds of years as a Catholic Church. It wasn't there. We could whine all day and just complain the fact that they're not doing anything, or we could just take the bull by the horns, create a group of people, and just lead by example. And if they follow us, fantastic. And if they don't, they got to face God. Okay. But we got to lead and we got to inspire. So Catholics for Catholics was born out of just a desire to back frontline warriors who love God and country. So Dodger Stadium was our first kind of shindig. And then we were very involved in the last election. We didn't work for President Trump, but he was the best Catholic option in the last cycle, obviously. And so we got behind, we're very involved there. So that's kind of a little bit about who we are as we get ready for this big event coming up.
Good. Yeah, it's exciting. And, I've said it before here, and I think you would agree with me is, Catholic lay people who are involved in these kind of things, deep down, we want to work ourselves out of this predicament, out of this job, out of this position. Like I want bishops and cardinals and popes to be leading the charge and saying, how dare you blaspheme our nuns, and we don't need your money, Joe Biden. I'm going to turn to the faithful and we're going to raise tens of millions of dollars and we're going to do the right thing. We want to champion our hierarchy in the right ways. It's just unfortunate that we're in this predicament at the moment.
Pat yourself on the back because it's having an effect. Look how far we've come in the past 5 years. We have a lot of, the fact that this is coming out and the fact that there's been so much pushback when the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops sues President Trump, Catholics are seeing this, right? We've had an effect. And there were priests who are waking up and bishops, so it's good.
Yeah. Let's talk about what's coming up here in March, because I'm excited to be a part of it. Catholics for Catholics are going to be at the White House Southern Campus at Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, get this, everyone. It's called the Catholic Prayer for America event, and it's going to be held, as Taylor said, the Southern White House in Mar-a-Lago on March 19th, Feast of St. Joseph, who is the declared patron against world communism by our dear Pius XI. Okay, so it's the second year we're doing this, and you may be asking, okay, great. So why are you doing it there? What's going on? Well, we were there last year, and we knew that, if this election was so dire that we really needed to get behind there's only two options. We're called to make a choice of President Trump and get behind President Trump with the power of prayer first and foremost. So we were there, assembled some Catholic leaders, pray the entire Holy Rosary in public, on stage at Mar-a-Lago. And it was such a success in a spiritual and obviously temporal sense that we're like, let's continue the tradition. So this is the second annual. It's called Catholic Prayer for America. And we'll throw that flyer on the screen in a second. We can talk about some of these speakers. You can see it there. We have an assortment of different people, okay? Clergy, obviously Bishop Strickland, first and foremost, otherwise known as America's Bishop, who will be leading us at the end of the night in the consecration to the Immaculate Conception and St. Joseph as the country begins the 250th anniversary celebrations of the founding of our nation, okay? Then you have different speakers up there who kind of give just the, state of the world, state of the church. Taylor's going to, Dr. Marshall's going to give us a great kind of overview of what's going on in the church, the present moment, what we need to be aware of as Catholics to grasp, to know the signs of the times, as Christ says. You have General Michael Flynn.
But I also want to talk about St. Joseph. I'm going to talk about St. Joseph.
Yeah, 100%.
That's so key. I think that's so key because we're missing true fatherhood in our politics, in our families, and I think also, unfortunately, in our church. And St. Joseph is the one who can help us on that. So I'm going to put that in there for sure.
You're the man for it, and we're forever married to that day. It'll always be March 19th.
Yeah, that's right.
We St. Joseph is the man. He's the man behind everything. He's such a great example as a father, as a person of prayer, as someone who serves our Blessed Mother, and again, patron against world communism, which is in a lot of ways what we're seeing today on the front lines in our country, right? Yes. So there's no better expert probably right now in the Catholic Church who can talk about St. Joseph the way that you can, Taylor, and we're really grateful that you'll be attending there. And then kind of going over to General Flynn. He's a Catholic, a dear friend. He's senior advisor to Catholics for Catholics. He's been part of Root from the very beginning. You got, obviously, Roger Stone, been around the block. You have Father Richard Heilman. A lot of people know him from U.S. Grace Force.
Yep.
And then
he's been on this podcast, so my audience knows Father Heilman.
He's such a great priest. And then there are some more speakers we're announcing, but they're not all there yet. You kind of go to that bottom row, and there you have Jean Marshall, okay, who is one of the pro-lifers that was just released from prison, okay, by President Trump. She's just an amazing, amazing story. And everything that these, like Jean Marshall, Nancy Charles, Captain Guy Gruters, and then there's Joe Thomas not on the screen. These are people who have experienced firsthand the power of prayer. This event is all about prayer. Prayer will save this country. It's it. Yeah. We've got to begin in prayer. It's the encounter with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ that changes everything. So Jean Marshall will give a fantastic about how that's actually played out. I was chatting with her yesterday, and you better believe it, she's got a message about IVF, okay, coming. So yes, we will be going to the whole and strong with our Catholic faith. It's important. That's why groups like us exist, and lay evangelists like Taylor. And then you have Nancy Charles, someone who's been set free, not physically, but set free by the craziness of the transgender movement, right?
Yeah, she's detransitioned.
And a Catholic convert in the same process. Her brother is a fantastic. He was a former speechwriter for President Trump in the first term. And runs Eternal Christendom, a great warrior for truth. So she just has a sweet soul. And you're going to be awed by her testimony.
Yeah, I
and
can't wait to meet
her. Again, Joe Thomas, not pictured, but he was a J6er who spent, one of these people who had zero nonviolent activity, was just there trying to defend, and, was thrown in prison, taken from his family, part of its solitary confinement, and just loves the Lord, and really is the guy behind, if you remember the whole Justice for All song, which is the national anthem, which is sung by members that were in prison, and they sang with President Trump. He's really behind getting that song out and creating this whole Sing for Freedom movement. So Joe will be there. And then you have Captain Guy Gruters, who's an old friend, and he is spent 5 years of torture in a Vietnam prison, and a dear Catholic, and he's going to share his testimony too. So we got some heavy hitters, and it's going to be a real special night. And again, leading up to the moment when we consecrate the United States to Our Lady.
Yeah. And St. Joseph. And I think it's symbolic to do it at Mar-a-Lago, which is President Trump's home. It's symbolic. It originally was, people don't know this, was intended to be a Southern White House. Went into private hands. Trump eventually bought it back himself. It is a beautiful place. And I think, you can't have a conference in the White House. I guess the next best thing is have Catholic Prayer for America at Mar-a-Lago. So definitely, Joy and I are going, and definitely looking forward to it. Now, yesterday, you kind of blew my socks off as we were talking about today's podcast. You're like, we have a plan. You're not going to believe this. Tell us what's going on.
My socks are blowing off when this guy approached me with this idea. Okay, so get this. This guy is not even Catholic, okay? Dear friend Cameron. So Cameron comes to me, he's like, hey, we got to make this event like big. I mean, we got to get the faith leaders involved. We got to get this place overflowing with the cat. I'm like, bro, like, you're not even Catholic. What's your beef? Like, why are you so passionate? I'm glad he's passionate, right? It's like, here's my idea, John. We got to get 100 priests to Mar-a-Lago, okay? And I'm like, well, okay, great, but do you know that priests typically don't have a lot of money? They're not going to be able to, come, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, don't worry about that. I'm going to fund it, okay? I'm going to fund to pay for 100 Catholic priests to come to this event. And my team looked at each other. We're like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is crazy. So we dropped everything. We're like super busy. We don't have that big of a team. And we put this together. There you have it, right on screen. Catholics for Catholics is partnering with American Heroes Association, Cameron Moore's nonprofit, and they've given us the funds to be able to sponsor any Catholic priest who wants to come to be a part of this day. They got to fill out the form. We got to be approved, so you can't just be you can't be a priest for a day just to get in, right? So they fill the form and we approve, and boom, you be part of the day. Now, why are we doing this? Here's the reality. As Taylor and I know, we were two guys that pursued the priestly vocation for a while. We know the sacredness of these men who are consecrated to Jesus. I mean, the power of those hands. I mean, they used to have that tradition especially in Europe, where you'd kiss the hands of the priest.
I still do it.
I still do. Yep.
Every time I meet a priest, I do it. Sometimes they pull their hand away, but you know what? I've got a really strong grip. They can't get away from me.
That's right. And I think isn't it like we were taught this plenary indulgence if you do it in the first year after their ordination.
That's right.
I mean, you can. So we would do that in seminary, and just, whatever you think of the tradition, but like that idea that these hands are consecrated to touch our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay. These same people, their successors were in the upper room with the Blessed Mother herself. She gathered the priest around her. And if we're doing an event about prayer, okay, we want, number one, Our Lady there. Okay. That's why Our Lady is a key point of Catholics for Catholics. Our logo commercial happens to be the image that George Washington had in Mount Vernon close to him, which hangs in Mount Vernon to this day. So that's our actual logo. We love Our Lady. She's the key. She's the mediatrix of all graces. Well, we want to create also an event of prayer. Well, let's get the people that are consecrated by God to serve us and bring us the Holy Eucharist, the priest. So having them there in person will be powerful. And to give you an idea if this is going to be popular or not, let me look at the list right here in front of me to the side. We launched this like last night. We are almost 25% there in terms of the amount of priests that will be coming. Okay. Including, amazing. I see one bishop-elect. I won't give the name out, but that's certainly interesting.
And there's going to be Bishop Strickland. So I'm just looking forward to the photo op. You're at Mar-a-Lago. You're at Trump's house. There's one or two bishops, maybe more bishops. There's 100 priests lined up praying, doing the consecration of the nation to Jesus through Mary. I mean, I'm on the Feast of St. Joseph. Again, is everything perfect in America? No. Are mistakes being made? Yes. Is Trump 100% aligned with every jot and tittle of faith and morals in the Catholic Catechism? No. To me, is this a beautiful supplication to write everything under the mantle of Jesus and Mary? Yes. So
absolutely.
I just can't wait for that. I just can't wait to see so many priests together. I think it is a historic moment. I think it's a win. And I hope that if President Trump isn't there, that it sparks his attention and it gets on his radar. And I don't see how 100 priests and a bishop or two or three being there at his home praying is not going to draw his attention and national attention.
Absolutely. And if you're a priest watching this and you're a little nervous about a picture, we're not going to force you to be on stage for a photo op. Don't worry. But if you want to just be there quietly in the background and pray, that's totally fine. It's, I get it.
So it's not a forced photo op. I want that photo.
There is not a photo.
I understand. You got to be tactful.
100%. No, it's it's. I think the Ratzinger have a phrase about like it's the association, the concentration of holiness in one place can elicit that favor from God. I think he actually used that reference to a certain Marian apparition, but anyway, don't quote me on that on the Taylor Marshall show. That'll have to be fact checked.
Yeah,
but we do want people who are coming there for the right reasons, coming there to pray.
Right. And it says religious. So if you're not a priest, but if you're a religious brother, what about nuns? Can they apply for this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nuns, religious with consecrated vows. Yes, that's the idea. That's the cool. Wish of the donor. That we're respecting.
So if you are a priest, brother, monk, friar, nun, sister, and you want to come, you won't be forced to take a picture, and you can sign up or apply at c4c.com/100 priests. It's there on the screen. It's also in the show notes on YouTube below. I believe it's the second link. You can click that and sign up. And I'll look forward to, man, if I always kiss the hands of priests, I might have to do that 100 times. It's going to be a lot of work on March 19th.
It's going to be a lot of work, a lot of graces coming from that. It'll be a powerful night. If it was anything like last year, it'll be pretty amazing. And people might remember this story. When we did this event last year, it was Father Altman, a friend, who ran into Baron Trump after the event ended, and he gave Baron Trump a statue of St. Michael. And that's awesome. Baron brought that statue to his dad, Don, that night, and it sat on his desk. So we never know the graces that it brings to a place, to a location, and it's important we be there. And now let's get this out there. You're looking at this event. Maybe you're going to the event site. You're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to make it there? Can't do this, travel expensive, whatever. Okay, here's your chance, people. We're going to give away a free ticket, okay, so that you can be part. We're actually giving a lot of free tickets, just to people that who've just been great warriors, and they helped either in the election or it's been long. They got like 50 masses set for Trump or different elements. Where and we want this as much as we can to include everyone. But we are going to give one free ticket away on this show. So here's what you got to do. You got to go to our website right there, c4c.com/win. It's also in the show notes. Fill out your name, cell phone, email, and we're going to choose a winner. Okay. I think it says it there, but I think it's March 4th. We're going to,
sweet.
That's the last day. have
So
to fill it
that
out. But
March 4th is Mardi Gras, day before Lent.
precisely.
Okay. So you'll announce it.
We'll announce the winner, who that is, and maybe you'll be there that night joining us in person for this historic night. So don't miss out on the opportunity.
And it's cool. I mean, I went with you, was it 3 years ago we went to Mar-a-Lago for the St. Thomas More Society dinner that Catholics for Catholics was somewhat a part of?
Yep.
And it's interesting because, you come in, you go through that door you always see at Mar-a-Lago, you're around the pool, they have drinks, and there's a dinner, right, in the convention hall. And it's kind of surreal to be there, honestly. You're like walking around Trump's house. I mean, you're not like in his bedroom or, but you are there, and it's kind of surreal. It's a beautiful place.
It is surreal. Let's be honest, from just a practical, almost historical point of view, frame of reference, it was the Southern White House, the past, in Trump's HQ, right? From a president, again, not perfect. We understand different issues, IVF, etc. Get it. And we're going to keep advocating. That's why we exist in the first place, people. Hello. We don't just wash our hands and walk away. But he is a man that's been used to really help save the country. I do believe, as President Trump believes, that he was saved on July 13th. And there's a Fatima connection I want to drop out here. July 13th, okay? Anniversary of Fatima, the day that the kids saw hell, right, in July. He is in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that's when the bullet missed his ear. We pointed out before in a previous episode that the nearest Catholic church near the stage is Our Lady of Fatima. And there was a statue, if you look on Google Maps, you can do it yourself, that we made a video on this, where the statue is literally facing in a direct line on Google Maps to the stage, okay? Overlooking where Trump was shot on that day, on her anniversary. Trump goes back there, as we know, right before the election for a return rally. Christopher Macchio, the America's tenor, the guy who was, going to sing on stage, had a set of songs that he was going to sing. And I talked to Chris's producer yesterday, and to confirm this, he said on the way to the stage, it was Trump himself who said, "Chris, I'm changing the songs on you. You're going to sing Ave Maria at the exact moment when we commemorate, 6/11 or 6/13, when the shot rang out and killed Corey, right?" So he chose Ave Maria. There's a Marian connection. And then the last Fatima connection of the night for our event coming up is, you remember the famous photo of that priest, Father Mahana, giving Our Lady a statue? Well, guess what? Father Mahana's going to be there in the audience, okay? Yes. And guess who he's bringing with him? He asked me. Says, "Would you mind if I bring her?" Like, what are you talking about? He's like, "The statue, the one that was in the White House." I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So you will see Our Lady of Fatima there making her presence.
For those that don't know, he gave a statue. Did he give it to Trump or to who did he give it to? Melania?
He gave it to Trump. I mean, the picture is with Trump. So
Trump, he gave it to Trump, and it was in the White House. That's the priest. He's an Eastern Rite priest or
Maronite priest.
Yeah, I met him in Dallas. Great priest. So I mean, it's great to see all these connections, and you never know if we're going to have a Constantinian revolution, if we're going to have mass conversion. I mean, it would be all of these characters, all of these players, everybody on the chessboard is faulted. You look at what could happen and what's happened in church history with the conversion of Clovis and Charlemagne and Constantine, and the Vikings eventually became Catholic. And what would happen if a RFK Jr. went back to fully practicing the faith, and a Trump became Catholic, and a Musk became Catholic? I mean, what would be the fallout of that? And the way those things happen in church history is you have men and women, lay religious priest, praying, fasting, asking for these favors. And that's what Our Lady of Fatima asked us to do, pray for sinners. So we have to do that. I think March 19th is the perfect time. We need fatherhood. We need St. Joseph for a protector. And he's also the terror of demons. We got to drive out some demons, John.
We do. We absolutely do, and that's the way we're going to do it. St. Michael also had a prominent role in this past election season for America, right? So he'll be a part of the day as well. So it's going to be. If you can't join, truly pray in person. Yeah. Leading up to it, we'll be doing a novena to St. Joseph. We have different well-known priests and bishops who have committed to leading us every single day in a different video form for the novena. And that's just the way. That's what we exist. That's what C4C Catholics for Catholics does. Just lead with Catholicism, lead with the beauty of our faith, the fullness of our faith, and put it out there for people. Beautiful.
All right, folks. Well, you can click the links below. You can get started with if you want to come and join us. Join me. Join. I will be there. Be happy to meet y'all. Y'all can meet John Yep too, and all the other great guests: Bishop Strickland, General Flynn, Roger Stone, Father Homan, Nancy Charles, Dr. Mannion, Gene Marshall, Captain Gruters, and many others. You go to C4C, four is spelled out, CFORC.com/events, and you can register and sign up. And of course, if you're a priest, you get to go for free. 100 of you, priest and or religious, get to go for free. So go to C4C, CFORC.com. /100 priest, or click the link below. And if you want to come and get a free ticket, go to the same website, c4c.com/win. They're going to be giving away a ticket on Mardi Gras, the day before Ash Wednesday, and we'll see y'all there. John Yep, this was great. This was fun.
This was fun.
What
Truly
a historic time.
Pleasure to walk the synodal way with you today, Taylor.
Let me ask you this, final word. Is it a great time to be a Catholic?
I love it. I seriously do. It's the best time. I mean, it would truly be boring. I grew up as a kid, always looking back at the greatest generation. Today's February 19th, 80th anniversary of Iwo Jima. And it's like, man, I wish I could be those people. But you know what? That's changed. We're living in the most unique time as a Catholic in the history of the church and of our nation. So blessed are the eyes to see what we see.
I've heard a holy priest say there's saints in heaven looking down at 2025 and saying, man, put me in, coach. I wish I could have been a Catholic at that time. There's so many opportunities to become a great saint. So with that said, pray your rosary every single day. You're not on the team. You got to pray that rosary. And remember that our Lord Jesus Christ says you're the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So go out there and be salty. God bless. Godspeed. John Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
All right. Appreciate you. Everybody go check out Catholics for Catholics, and we'll see you in the next show. Godspeed.